Hello, welcome to the Record Celtic podcast. My name is Daniel Caw. I'm delighted to be joined by Record Sports Graeme Young and Michael Gannon. Mick, Graeme, how's it going?
Good, mate.
Aye, all good on this kind of rainy October afternoon. There's not a lot to talk about in this Celtic podcast. That's the only thing, isn't it? It's pretty quiet. So I don't know how we're going to fill the next kind of half hour or so, because it's been all pretty plain sailing, isn't it, for Celtic recently?
It's not, as you say, not a lot. The one perfect place I think was to start. There's a story up on Record Sport Online just now by one Michael Gannon, sort of 6 reasons Celtic became a car crash. And
Right.
that's the headline, but that obviously refers to Brendan Rodgers' Honda Civic comments the other day. And I'll maybe start us off. I've got no idea what he was hoping to achieve with that. If you were a Celtic player in the dressing room, you must have been thinking, "Oh, cheers, thanks for that." I thought it was really odd.
I was there. I must admit that did jump out at the time. I thought it was quite wild. I mean, this is the guy who Brendan Rodgers does not leave a word out of place at press conferences. He knows exactly what he's saying at all times. I mean, I keep going back to his neuro-linguistic qualifications, which is about how you kind of stress certain ways of speaking and saying what you say for impact and all that sort of stuff. So it doesn't say it lightly. It's a wee bit of a throwaway kind of line, but although this season, keeping the car analogy going, he has had the handbrake off at times this season with some of his comments. I mean, he's just kind of, it's in that kind of, listen, he's at 800 games as a manager, and he's that kind of, I'll say what I feel now kind of mode. He's also a disciple of Jose Mourinho, remember, as well, who's not shy at speaking his mind. Yeah, but it was a strange thing to say. I don't think he meant it in a totally disparaging way against his squad. But it's also pretty honest. I mean, I mentioned in that piece you're talking about, I mean, you look at the Celtic have replaced, I mean, we're going all ground, right, but you've got Kyogo, Ida, when Jota's injured, Kuhn. Even up front, you get Kyogo and Ida last season. To then go from that to Iniacho, who's barely been fit for a year or so, and Johnny Kenny, who's a League of Ireland loanee, not up to Celtic level. I mean, a £17 million strike force what must have Johnny Kenny cost? At 400 grand or something like that, and a freebie, and Iniacho. And you wonder why they bring in, they lose. I mean, they've lost so many goals in the team. This is what Rodgers keeps going on about. They've lost so much firepower, and it's evident. I mean, even the guys they've brought in are not what you could say are reliable goal scorers. I mean, Sebastian Trecky, I think, has looked lively. I think some people went a bit overboard at the start, but he scored about 3 goals last season. I think he scored 7 goals in 2 years. Balikwisha I know he was injured for a long time, but he scored 9 goals in 2 years. Iniacho scored about 6 in 2 years. Since back to November 2023. In the squad, you get James Forrest, who scored 1 goal since May 2024, albeit the famous one at the end of the season. Never scored all last season, remember? That was the first goal of the season. So not a goal scorer. Yang, who scored half a dozen goals in his entire time at Celtic, 80 odd plus appearances. Celtic are badly lacking firepower. And you think, well, why are they not scoring goals? Well, there's why. They haven't got any goal scorers. They've been left without any goal scorers, which is an extraordinary situation to be in, really. And what happened was that they've been getting away with it in a few games here and there. But then when you start making this mistakes defensively, then you're getting punished and you're not getting back. I mean, I've been covered Celtic games for years, and even going 2-0 down, you still think, I mean, you think, I might hit the in-play betting here and stick a wee couple of quid on them winning 3-2, because I mean, it's like they usually throw the kitchen sink and you think that they'll get something at the game. Never felt that way on Sunday with Celtic. No. Never really looked like scoring, really. A couple of wee half chances here and there. And the problems they've got is, this is where they are right now. They're failing to score goals. They're now conceding goals. They've got gaping holes in the squad. We've got a manager who looks scunnered. The board who are under major heavy fire. Am I at 6 yet? Did I mention 6? So it's an utter mess. And the thing I think for Celtic is it could get worse. They've got, Sturm Graz on Thursday night, a bang average Austin team, by the way, who are quite capable of coming to Scotland and getting a result. Hearts on Sunday, which is now absolutely epic, could go potentially 8 points behind Hearts at this stage in the season. And there's a cup semi-final against Rangers up again, and they've got a new manager. And unlike Celtic, they have got firepower. I mean, I don't think they've particularly used it particularly well so far this season, which is why Russell Martin get his jotters. But they've got more firepower than Celtic. If it's a boxing match, if it's a basketball match like the previous Old Firm games, it's a 2-0, they're 2 each, 3 each, and all that stuff. Celtic not got the firepower. They got it to 3 each or 4 each. So there's major. I think there's major. I think this is bad just now, but it could get worse.
Look, Graeme, I mean, I think Mick makes a good point. I mean, I said...
Sorry, G, podcast. See you next week.
My job's done, mate.
No, I mean, the Honda Civic thing, I do think was a strange thing to come out and say, but he's not wrong.
No, he's not wrong. And Mick touched on there as well. See, Brendan Rodgers is the expert at both choosing his words and diffusing as well, isn't he? So good at when it seems obvious that he has to answer a question, he's as good as anyone. But so just the way it was said, obviously, and it's such an emotive. He knows how he talks about. No one knows Glasgow better than Brendan Rodgers, and he knows that is tabloid 101, and rightfully so. Like it's there, and it's said for a reason. But you're right. It's a worrying time now for Celtic, and just watching Mick summed it up there perfectly. Like the idea is that Celtic aren't equipped for a firefight, are they? They really aren't. They're just not able to go with teams, and twice as well. I've noticed as well. That's twice the 3-5-2s come out at half time in recent weeks. Now Brendan Rodgers, he's always been flexible and trying little nuances in his tactics, but to see just such a marked shift, and it is we're not far away from centre halves going up front here. It's that's how desperate it is to kind of find a solution for Celtic and in games, and the runs really that could get worse. We really could get worse here. Sturm Graz, we saw against Rangers. There's nothing special there, but going to Tynecastle as well. Tynecastle in any season's a tough game normally. This is a completely different Hearts with a manager who's, I think his whole career's been building towards this kind of moment. And then we touched on the Rangers. Danny Rowe must be 1 win at 8 games going into a Rangers team, and Celtic, they're not touching distance, but there's not that much. If they can start getting their form right, that they can start coming out the table as well. Maybe Hearts will be a bigger issue if form goes as it is. But there's so much there. And to see Brendan Rodgers like that, I wouldn't say it was a mayday signal, but everything that any of these fears that have been growing probably since the cup final about Celtic and the problems in the team. And do you remember at the start of the year, it was Celtic lost 2 games in 2024. That felt very reflective of that team. But since the turn of the year, they get scalped at Ibrox, and there's been a myriad of problems since, isn't there? Performances, results, and it's all led to this. And now it's a pretty formidable run of fixtures, and there is no guarantee. Sometimes, because it's Celtic and they always win, there's always, bar the COVID season, they always find a way, but there is no evidence here there will be a solution found. And I think that's the most galling bit for everyone who's invested in the club.
And that's the thing, guys. I mean, Mick, you mentioned Hearts, obviously. Say, and I know it's a big if, but if Hearts were to beat Celtic at the weekend, they're 8 points clear. Then the following week, Celtic are in the Cup. Hearts get the chance to go 11 points clear. Then even the weekend after that, Hearts play first. You could be in a scenario where Celtic, the next time they kick a ball in the league, they're 14 points behind Hearts. What's going on?
And that would be extraordinary. But listen, what I think there's maybe a bit of sleepwalking going on at Celtic as well. For all concerned is that it's because it's Hearts. So if this was a regular season and Celtic were 5 points behind Rangers at this stage, with potentially going 8 points behind Rangers at the weekend, I think it would be, all hell would be breaking loose. And I've seen it across the city. Michael Beale get his books 7 points behind in October. Van Bronckhorst, I think, was 9 points behind in November, get his books. Come on, something similar. So because it's Hearts, I think there's almost a kind of deep line. I don't know what arrogance is the right thing, but thinking that, well, they'll tail off. Yeah. As long as they're 5 points ahead of Rangers or what it is ahead of Rangers, they'll be fine. They're not fine. Celtic are not fine, because to claw back any kind of deficit, they need to be equipped to go long unbeaten spells. And to go long unbeaten spells, there's this thing that's required. You can't need to score goals. It's unavoidable. You need to score a lot of goals. And Celtic are incapable of scoring a lot of goals. And Graeme, you're talking about changing formation. I think a lot of people are saying, right, they need to change formation. I don't see how that makes a blind bit of difference, because all you're doing is It's the old John Toshak line. It's like having a blanket that's too small. You're pulling the blanket over your head to keep your head warm. Your feet are going to get cold. Pull it down to get your feet warm. Your head gets freezing. Celtic still have got gaping holes. You could play. I mean, he went to a 3-4-3 against Braga, 3-5-2 at Dundee. He ends up with who? Big question. There's a big hole on the right hand side. Who plays there? Who plays on that right hand side? They go 2 strikers up front. Who's the second striker? Who's the first striker? I mean, Iñárritu, I said a bright start. Very little evidence to suggest that he's going to be able to hold the line till January. In terms of his fitness, in terms of what he's been doing the last 2 or 3 seasons. I mean, his last few seasons at Leicester weren't great. Poor seasons at Seville, and then poor at Borough. So unless there's some sort of magic, at the moment he's just turned 29. You wouldn't think he just turned 29. You think he turned 35 the way he's playing. I get it. He's not quite up to speed yet, but he's a month or so in the building. And if anything, his performances are starting to kind of diminish. I get that he's not getting much service. Totally understand that. And he comes looking for the ball, but then he comes looking for the ball and he spins and he's not getting back in the 6-yard box to get a ball across the face. So he's not even getting chances, really. I mean, he's hit a couple of shots about the blunder the bar because he didn't when he chose to take it early. Nothing hit the post from 25, 30 yards. It was never going to anyway. But so he's struggling a bit in all terms because of service. And I think it'd be a good sign if he'd been a kind of backup guy coming from the bench. He'd probably still score 10, 15 goals. But Celtic number 2 striker's got to score 10, 15 goals a season. Is Johnny Kenny going to get 15 goals? He scored 2 so far in 9 months, 10 months. Is he capable of? Adam Idah scored 20 goals last season, being pretty much number 2 all season. I mean, is somebody going to score 30 goals for this season? I mean, last year, Maida gets 34 goals. Idah gets his backup gets 20. Kyogo got 10 before he left. I mean, where are these goals coming from?
Yeah, I know.
And you change formation, so they're going to rely on Iñárritu up top to start every week. Is that going to end up detrimental to him? His fitness might catch up on him as well because he's not played much in the last kind of year. I just don't see whether I think they're going to find a way of playing the same formation with different players in different positions, but I don't know. What do you think, Graeme? I don't know, but you're more of a kind of tactical. I mean, you're a bit of a kind of a coaching A license effort. I'm an F license. What would you do?
Picks magnets up to the side of camera. I agree. That's the scary thing. This is the point. You can talk about tactics all day long and you can look at anything, but when the players aren't there, there's no fix, is there? That's the scary bit. I think Tanecki was mentioned, you touched on, Mick, and this seems uber harsh, right? And the guy who's genuinely been a bright spark. But the scary thing with a player like Sebastian Tanecki getting the ball 20, 25 times a game, he's not at that level yet. And he's obviously very promising, nice touches, nice moves. When he gets past a player, he can put a good ball in the box. But you're asking a player to be like a Jota-style impact player who's not proven ever to be that player. And that's kind of indicative of where this team is. Balikwisha, that must be a worry. Do you know, this might, in a season of mistakes, 5 million with a guy a year left, and he just seems so within himself. There's wee touches here and there, the cross of the winner for Maeda. So that's the left side, the £10 million 2-winger left side, but there's no guarantees what's the best one long term there. The striker part's been covered. Iñárritu it does feel like he's regressing because he does like to come short, and he knows there's no action in the 6-yard box being a Celtic striker. So he's deferring to type. Yang, I'm sorry, but of all Brendan Rodgers' mistakes in recent week, to expose Yang one more time to something he's quite clearly not capable of, it did no. So what's the point of James Forrest at 35 or whatever being a Celtic player? He's got to be the starter in a game like that. If that's the level you're at now,
The problem is James Forrest has not been playing particularly well. I mean,
no, exactly.
I mean, James Forrest is and rightly regarded as a Celtic kind of hero and legend. He's been a tremendous servant, but he's 34 and he has played a lot of football this season and not done an awful lot really. And I don't think I would hold that against him because he's 34 years old. He's a winger. Wingers are a bit. I mean, he's still. I think in the last couple of seasons he showed a bit of pace. I don't think he was great last season. I think he was the season before. He finished in the season really well. Wasn't great last season. A lot of injury problems. Got his goal at the end, and everyone thought it was lovely. But to go back to that, to one of your main starters. And by the way, does he play as a wing back? You're going to ask me to play as a wing back? I mean, or is it? I mean, it's just that's just not an option, really. That isn't really an option.
The biggest thing that this is like the COVID season, I feel, is do you remember during that time, someone like Ryan Christie would score a world day and he was the solution, or Christopher Julian come back for injury? There was always a way to fix a broken season, but in truth, there is no fix, is there? Sometimes it's not a singular player. The one that could, and then after saying that, I'll come up with one, but Arne Engels, to me, I know he's the butt of the joke at £11 million, but his greatest strength is his ability to be quite direct and long balls and whipping them round corners. He became I think his game had been overcoached in the sense it became very simple and dropping it off to McGregor. I think you need to get Engels. When he came in, he was playing longer passes, having shots to distance. I think that's one player. Luke McCowan, I don't know how you guys feel. I always feel Luke McCowan is the most maverick player in that team, in the sense that he'll get a shot off and he'll just do something a bit. I feel right now with this Hatate, Negrin and McGregor midfield, it feels over-rehearsed, and each week it's diminishing returns. And I feel the ones that are on the bench aren't perfect, but there's more chance of off-the-cuff style goals that Celtic kind of need to get them out of hole. And I think Rodgers, this is where he earns his money, isn't it? Let's be honest. There is solutions there. They're not perfect, but there is ways to change it, and I think he has to do it now.
I mean, the reason why Negrin's in there is because he is more a goal threat. He's the club's top scorer right now. I mean, he's got 4 goals this season.
4 goals,
3 or 4 assists. So he's probably the biggest threat in the team. That's why he's in there. The problem is that when he's not scoring a goal or making an assist, he's not as influential as he needs in there. He's not strong enough in the ball. He needs a bit more time on a touch. Gives the ball away. He gets caught in possession too many times, and he's not quick enough to get it back. So, and he's not as strong on that kind of counter press that Rodgers loves. So he's in there because he might get a goal or an assist. Like at Aberdeen is a great example when he gets in the box and a great finish. But but you take him out of the team, so that goal threat goes. But I think Engels is a better option in terms of the structure of the team, winning the ball, and like you say, that kind of counter press. But there's another couple of goals at the team that are gone because he's not particularly a goal scorer. He got a few penalties last season, but he's not a goal scorer. So there's more goals at the team that a team that's not scoring any goals lose. So again, this is Rodgers. This is the blanket analogy. He's playing him because he needs the goals, but by not playing him, he takes the goals. It might be stronger, but then where does the goals come from? I think what he'll need to do is again, I'm not a £3 million a year manager. I think he needs to. I don't think the formation can be changed, or I don't think the personnel can allow it to be changed. He needs to get Arthur Johnson back fit, sharpish. I would put Kieran Tierney into left centre half. I'd play Sirachi, give Sirachi a run. I would switch Tuneke to the other side. He's played there for Tunisia. I know it's not his side, but
sorry to jump in, Mick, but he played there in the last international rate. He played both of Tunisia's games on the right.
Yeah, exactly. So he's got to go to that side, but he's going to cut inside all the time, which is fine. He does that anyway, the other side as well. So I'd switch him to that side, try and get the width from Arthur Johnson, get up and down that flank beyond him. And then Sirachi, the other side, if Wishaw wants to cut inside, he can go beyond, or he could go inside. I think the width's got to come from somewhere, because the moment we're not getting width in the team. I think Bernardo, I know he came back in for a game and he had an absolute stinker. I think it's worth a bash again. These games, it happened the last time. He takes a while to get warmed up. Bernardo needs a run of games. I think maybe even putting him deeper where he plays for Portugal as a captain in the 21s, and let McGregor go further up the pitch. I think I know he gets criticism, right, but which I think a lot of it's unfair. I'd maybe play him further up the pitch in that kind of area. That kind of is one of the.
Mick, see, this doesn't have to be a Cal McGregor drop. It's Cal McGregor, but see if nothing else, right? See if when Cal McGregor's injured and he's not playing, it looks the same way. Cal McGregor comes to the centre half, picks up the ball. See, even just like you say, if it means McGregor moving forward, or if there was one game without him, just to see how it looked. I know Rodgers, that's not going to happen, but if nothing else, take McGregor out that usual pivot and taking the ball. At least it changes the reference point, doesn't it? It changes how Celtic look. Are we not even at that point now? Forget captaincy, that just to make it look different or sell it different to how the team moves up the pitch, is that worth a gamble? So can you do that to a player like Cal McGregor where he wouldn't play a big game just to try it?
I just think it sounds like madness talking about taking him out of the team. I think, especially at a team they've got a few new faces, that some that are working, some that aren't. His experience and drive, I think, is in there is absolutely vital. So I think need their leaders in there, and his ability as a football player. I mean, the thing that Cal McGregor is, he's probably been a 7.5, 8 out of 10 every week for about 5 years solid, playing every week. And this year it's maybe not the case, and it's more noticeable. Anything's a bad game, it's more noticeable. And a lot of time I think it's because of what's around. I've said this before, but a lot of times, like people were moaning about him passing the ball back, but a lot of times he's giving the ball out to like a Yang or a Tuneke or a Tati. Tati's been giving the ball away for fun this season, and the problem is he gives it away. He's the one having to run 40 yards to cover up the damage it's done. Yeah. And after a while, subconsciously or consciously, you think, I'm not going to keep doing that because I can't keep doing this on my Todd. But again, the problem is, again, back everything is going to get back to recruitment from not just the summer, from January, the previous year, and the previous year. Celtic, I mean, what is it? McGregor is now recognised as number 6, isn't he? That's the way you probably classify him, a defensive midfielder, a deep line midfield player, whatever you want to call it. He's the only one that they've got. Doesn't he? I mean, is Bernardo? Would you say Bernardo's that role? I don't know. I don't know what Bernardo plays. Really, to be honest with you, is Engels that? I don't think he's quite rough and tumble enough for that kind of role. I don't know. Could be. Again, not really sure what his best role is, but there's no natural kind of deep line. I must argue back. I mean, it was a mistake selling Awata a couple of seasons ago. I think Timoki Awata was an option in there. Who's now by all accounts doing really well at Birmingham, albeit last year it was in the 3rd division. So take that as well, right? But I always thought he was a pretty handy guy to have around the place. Could play centre half, centre mid, or right back. Another strange decision back in the day. But they don't have Andy. So that's again, it's a dereliction of the kind of future proofing this squad. It's been allowed to kind of fall apart, really, Celtic squad, without proper kind of positions dealt with in at the right time. So they've left themselves. I say I think there's trouble brewing on the horizon. I don't think it's going to. I don't see any easy solutions. And Rodgers has been trying things. I mean, he brings back Yang, having not seen him for a month. I mean, like Graeme, you're right. I mean, he shouldn't have been still in the books after the summer. He's away. His bags are packed. He was down the road, but coming back, and then the game against Kyra over there was an all-time howler. And I thought that would be the final. The last time we've seen the lad.
Sorry to jump in, Mike, but why does Rodgers keep playing? I mean, I don't like to single him out
because you got nobody else.
Well, you could play Tuneke out there, put Balikwisha. I don't know, Forrest. This
might happen now. This is what might happen now in a few weeks. But then he's not got. I mean, look, say Sturm Graz, Hearts for the Falkirk midweek, and then Rangers. No. I mean, in another European game. So get five games in the bounce with no. I think 5 must-win games practically. And then you need to experiment. They need to experiment with a team to find something that might work.
It's 7 games in 21 days they've got, Graeme, and like Mick kind of says. Well, I'll tell you what, from my point of view, the worry is just that there's no sign on the horizon that this is going to get any better. I mean, Celtic go through bad patches, lose games, whatever, and you go, like Mick says, they'll go 2-0 down, you think, well, they'll come back here. But as we've kind of touched on, I don't know who's going to bail them out this time.
No, that's it. And I think talking a bit about the 1920, the COVID season, but I think Gordon Strachan's last season, 2008, 2009, that was the second half of the season that went to pot, but there was loads of issues that it was just like a team at the end of its cycle. And I think this kind of sums up, how the element of Celtic and this player trading, there's an argument they haven't been aggressive enough. So Maeda's still there, as we know. Alistair Johnson, as good as he is, the really good teams can get rid of an Alistair, but losing Alistair Johnson and a Maeda, have the replacements ready to go again. Celtic now we've got to this point with players, Carter Vickers included as well, a lot of core, really important players who seem to have reached that point in their career, coupled with poor signings that don't work. And it just feels now that this fixture list is properly daunting, because like any Celtic, even last season in the great highs of the first half of last season, there was a proper fixture list. You'd go for Leipzig to Aberdeen and all these big games, and they dealt with aplomb because the team was top notch and everything was working. One thing as well, touch on about Tuneke playing in the right as well. You notice, see, like Nicholas Kuhn last year, for all his brilliance, how good was he at that wee pass into Johnson coming over behind him, and just these wee subtle things that make a team work. And I don't think Tuneke, for all his talent, I think that's obviously where the growth has to happen. He doesn't seem aligned with the team element and all these wee things that come with it as well. I think so every fixture here looks like an adventure moving forward that could come anywhere. I think Derek McInnes, I've touched on this a couple of times here, the fact that he's made for this moment, isn't he? This has been a career, learning what happened at Aberdeen with a pretty good team to now, and how confident he appears in himself. And I think he'll be relishing a desperate Celtic team. It will feel like that. Celtic will need to make sure they get a result, and I think Hearts can take advantage. So the next two, Sturm Graz under the lights, a fan base that are apathetic at best and on the verge of a revolution if they could get away with it. Weekend away to Hearts, and then that's its own thing. Then if it goes to pot in those two, then it's just the hits are going to keep coming. We've been here before. It doesn't slow down for there, and I think that's how serious this has become very quickly.
There's a question, right? The COVID, everyone holds up the COVID season, the kind of Baltimore, isn't it? The domination of the COVID season. But that squad looks stronger than the current squad.
See when Graeme was when you were listening there, Graeme, I was thinking to myself,
that team did not struggle to score goals.
And
but in terms of front options, it had Griffiths Edward, backed up by Ayeti and Patrick Klamala. Right, that's the 4 strikers. It had, Elanusi as well, Ryan Christie, Tom Rogic. A lot of firepower. The problem is they had was more defensively. They didn't have the centre half. Obviously they kind of Shane Duffy didn't work, and they were playing Beaton in there, and but they had Chris Ayer and Frimpong. There's a lot. That team to me. I don't know. I think that's certainly in terms of goals. They didn't struggle to score goals that season. They had a lot of silly games when they beat 3-2 and 2-1 and all that, and 4-3s, and I think they lost 4 goals in Europe quite a few times, didn't they? AC Milan and Sparta Prague.
It was the Barkas factor as well, Mick Barkas, who just couldn't.
So they had problems at goalkeeper and centre half, and I say, who's the left back called again? Laxalt, Diego Laxalt. He wasn't up to much. So the problems at left back, but in terms of scoring goals, David Turnbull could score a goal. You would take that.
You would take that team over now in terms of firepower, wouldn't you? Definitely.
Well,
I would anyway.
I think, in Cham, middle of part as well at that time. That season, I think, was a weird season. And listen, until they got taken at Christmas and they dropped points here and there, but they'd also lost 3 games, remember, in terms of the COVID stuff. They'd lost 3 or 4 matches they had in hand, and then they started dropping points in those games in hand. And so the gap was 13, 14, 15 points, but it actually could have been only like 5 or 6 if the games in hand were won. But then when they got to the games in hand, the gap was so big, and then they lost a couple of them. And that's when it became untenable, and it all kind of unraveled again. So that's a weird season. But this current team, you could see the problems coming that season, because they were for the first chunk of the season they did actually all right, and they were doing okay. But a lot of late winners and a lot of kind of games they kind of edged out. I remember a couple of kind of wins at Murn Levy and all that stuff, and they edged out late and all that stuff. You knew that you can't keep this up. Happening again this time. There were a few late winners this season. And people love these late winners and they celebrate them, but they're a sign that there's a good bit of fighting spirit in the team, yes. A good desire to get a result, yes. If that happens now and again, happening time and time again, it's a sign of structural problems, because that can't be maintained. And it happened to Aberdeen last year. At the start of the season, they had a lot of late goals and then it fell apart. This year, Celtic had a few late goals. It's actually masked how bad it's been. And now we're kind of starting to see how the summer of discontent in the window is now manifesting itself, and I think there's major problems in the pipeline. And where it goes, I don't know. People now, I don't know what Graeme thinks. There's even people talking about the manager. Does he get sacked?
Well, Mac, if it does, like anything, nothing seems feasible until it gets them. Probably a few bad results to the question truly been asked.
Listen, the Celtic are 8 points behind in October. 8 points behind Rangers in October. Does the manager get bagged? Probably, because it's Hearts, it wouldn't happen. And because of what we talked about, the reasons why they're at this point, a lot of it's nothing to do with the manager. But
not exactly. But in like the Honda Civic comment, these things, if the results keep up, moods can change quickly. But if let's just jump ahead a bit. If it did happen, I'm telling you what, that's not a club legend or anything else that could say. They would need someone absolute wild card to get them out of this. This is a proper Reno Gattuso style. they would honestly. That's the only thing that would help them escape, because it feels like such a malaise. This is the work I like Mick's talking about, these transfer windows that have gone awry, and what palpable just like fan just ire at the board that's just all erupted at one point, and then a product in the pitch that isn't. It would need someone that's got if someone's got a way of putting these players together to get goals, and fair play, but I just don't think it would need to be a proper firefighting option. That's the thing. It can't be, and obviously Neil and Dunfermline matter in the past, it's been a go-to, but there would have to be someone completely outside the box. It would need to be, and I don't really think that's the Celtic board's MO either, so it feels that's not the way they do things, is it?
I mean, surely they can't sack Brendan Rodgers, surely.
Nah.
Well, that's I'm saying, Mick, as well, that in the next couple of weeks, if these results, you know yourself, a poor result against Graz, 8 points against, if it does, it feels that's the way they would.
Then, those in isolation, you would think that should put the spotlight on a manager.
Yeah.
But every time you do that, you can't get away from the reasons why they got to this point.
Yep.
I mean, he's been saying for months and months before the window closed, we need quality, we need this, we need that, and never got it. And how that transpired will eventually come to light. And I know there was issues in terms of the recruitment process and the players put forward, and maybe he didn't like a lot of them. He wanted a higher level, but you can't really blame a guy for wanting better, but then they're not delivering better. So anytime you do put the manager under scrutiny, which I think is rightly, by the way. I mean, I think there is aspects of the way they've been playing. I think you can scrutinise the manager, but everything all goes back, doesn't it?
Yes.
All roads lead back to the recruitment. But you've now got a club that the board and the fans are at loggerheads. The board and the manager, I mean, are parts of the board or the hierarchy and the manager are no longer seen eye to eye. The squad is malfunctioning on the pitch at every level. And now you get the manager calling the players Honda Civics. Every single level is malfunctioning at the moment.
I think the mitigating part here for Brendan Celtic is the fact is that it's so near the end game potentially of when the contract ends. That now obviously the biggest thing is obviously the fact that he obviously wanted to come back. Famously said in day one, his second spell, that he's here for 3 years in case he'd get emptied. And he said obviously he believes that never happened. It most likely won't, obviously. But the fact is, well, the other comment after Kyra, you were there, Mick, was it's managers that get sacked, not boards. And we're at that point where everyone with affiliation with Celtic can quite clearly see the concerns that Brendan Rodgers has, because they share those concerns. But like anything, if the end goal for Celtic is always to win, if the results keep going south, then that question, even though it's already started to get mentioned in the Celtic sphere this week, within the coming weeks will become a more legitimate question about the future of the manager. And that is Glasgow 101, isn't it? Like if they go 8, I think the one thing you've said a couple of times, Mick, as well, about how if it was Rangers that were falling potentially 8 points behind, but there is a difference. Everyone can see this Hearts team aren't the Aberdeen team of last season, or this is the most legitimate threat outside Rangers that Celtic face in a long, long time. And I think that also adds an extra element of the severity of what would maybe need to come next if results don't come back.
It does, but we're not here to debate the merits of Hearts' title challenge, but they will find it harder purely because teams will change the way they play against them after the first round of fixtures. They'll realise that Hearts, they might even see Hearts on a par with Rangers and Celtic, so they will change the way they play. And Hearts may end up with the same problems that Celtic Rangers had historically, the kind of how do you break teams down type thing. And they'll need to deal with that hurdle. Their squad will get stretched through the winter as well. I do think you're right. I think they're a more legitimate prospect than some years we've seen, but they will face challenges that teams do face when they're outside the. And Celtic have been the best by a far in Scotland, as evidently so with the titles, at maintaining that push, finding new ways to get beyond these kind of teams that will try and defend against them. And now that's stopped because Celtics now can't figure out ways to get... Every game that Celtic have dropped points in, and in Europe as well this year, have been like, honestly, Groundhog Day stuff. Every game's been the same. So, and get back to the cup final as well, exactly the same in the cup final. Aberdeen played for penalty kicks from the first whistle and got them. And Celtic have forgotten or now have not got the ability to work out how to get around these teams. So I think Hearts are a problem for them, but it's more the fact that it's getting their own points on the board. I think it's more a problem for Celtic and where it goes. the contract thing, the manager is an issue that's not going to go away. If Celtic board sacked Rodgers, I mean, can you imagine? I mean, I know there's some punters that we probably got that. Yeah, fair enough. On you go. We can fancy a change. That's just the way. That's the nature of football, especially after 2 spells. A lot of folk will have heard it. Will move on, and I think Rodgers himself might probably got that. You know, thanks very much. We'll see you later on. It's not the end that he would have preferred. I think he preferred to win the title and leaving right off on his horse and at the sunset. I don't know if that's going to be the ideal scenario. It's going to play out now with this group. It's just I just see more bumps in the road. More storm clouds, and unless the Celtic board, unless they roll out Ange in the same move, and it's Boston Cogley, that would be an immediate kind of way to get them off the backs. But if they did sack the manager, it'd be mayhem, absolutely mayhem. I think losing them at the end of the season is a dereliction of duty. I mean, he's pretty much said he wanted to hang around. Yeah. If he gets back, to know that's a big caveat. It's an easy way to get out, but they're kind of letting what is my second most decorated manager in the club's history, just let them out the door because they can't work with them. Who's at fault then? If you can't work with this manager, is it his fault or their fault? I mean, that's the question.
Well, before we wrap up, guys, very quickly, predictions. Obviously, we're recording this on Tuesday ahead of Sturm Graz at home and Hearts at the weekend. Graeme, how do you see both those games going? What's your predictions?
I'm going, after all the negativity, I'll go for a narrow win, Sturm Graz. I think there's levels, isn't there? And I think they'll maybe be enough to win that. And also, I think they'll be able to box Clever at Tynecastle to get a draw. But I think it seems a pretty safe. But I do feel that they might have to come from behind, and this is where they'll need to show they can hit the net. So I think they'll do enough to get at least a point at Tynecastle as well.
Mick, what do you think?
Well, listen, it might be the fact that I'm just suffering from my post-holiday blues. And my tan lasted about 12 hours from being away last week. So I can't see. I mean, I seen someone said that Sturm Graz were 5-1 to win.
Really? Wow.
Tell you what, like phone's bank, moves mortgage. I just think there's trouble brewing. I think I think they could be. I think it'll be nothing each on Thursday night. I think Graz will come and play and do. If they've got any sense, they'll come and take the Jimmy T-Line Cup final blueprint like everyone else has done, or the Kayat blueprint, and apply that to the game and get nothing each draw, which won't help it won't help Celtic. And I think they're there for the taking at Tynecastle next week. I think the way the mood at Tynecastle, the fragility around Celtic right now, a tight pitch and all that stuff. I just think I think that'd be I think I could see Hearts winning that game, and then watch the mushroom cloud exploding above Parkhead.
I feel like I should put up a number for the Samaritans in this podcast, but I think that will.
Very cool. Did you see it? I mean,
of course, I know absolutely.
I just think there's vulnerabilities.
You're right.
Mick, seeing on Brendan the way you do it, pressers and stuff, and what he said this week, if this results the way you think it could go 0-0 defeat at Tynecastle, so a sound bite like the Honda Civic, where would that leave him? You know him well enough. Would he intimate at that point that time could be up? Could you see him then himself changing tact? Or
I don't know. I don't think he's going to quit. He won't quit. I mean, I asked him after the transfer window that did you come close to thinking right, enough's enough, that's not worth the hassle? And he said no. So he'll try and stick it out. And the board, I don't think will sack him because of the fear that the ramifications of doing that, having been, clearly majorly to blame for the situation they're in. I just don't know. This is the thing. We're now stepping into the unknown with Celtic, really. Even beyond the weird COVID campaign, this is uncharted territory, really, with Celtic. So I just don't know. I just can't see. I'm now thinking I'm struggling to see Rodgers being in charge at the end of the season, to be honest with you. And you think back, it just looks so broken. But then I think he won't walk away. So somebody's going to have to make a big decision at Celtic at some point if it comes. But the other flip side is he has got the managerial nows to find something. So I'm painting a picture of gloom and doom because that's just my nature, right? And I'm back my holidays and I'm I'm too fat, too skint. So if there's anyone that could find a way to kind of find a spark, I think he is the one. I think he is a guy. We talk about changing managers and all that stuff, and you get a new manager bound sometimes. But I think if you look for someone who could find a structure that would work, I think he'd be the guy. I mean, 800 odd games as a manager, proven winner, knows the patch well. He'd be the guy that you'd hang your hat on. So again, it might just need a spark, and you might just find something in training that works, a formation and a setup that works and the clicks, and somebody becomes an unlikely kind of source of a lot of goals. You might get Dyson Maeda comes back from injury and thinks, right, I'm going to go mad again for 6 months, for 3 months to get this big move, rather than sitting out every time he feels a wee sore knee, anything like that. So it might need somebody to explode, 2 or 3 guys exploding into life, and that's what he's got to. This is the toughest test he's had at Celtic in his 2 spells. But again, he's the guy you wouldn't bet against him usually to get it right. But it's tougher than ever.
Well, whatever happens, we will be following it all here on the Record Celtic podcast. But for this week, gents, I think that brings us to the end of today's show. Thank you very much for listening at home. We'll be back next week. I dare say it will be an eventful one. I'll probably be pesting both you guys to join me again. But for now, Mick, Graeme, it's always a pleasure.
Thank you, mate.
No worries, chaps. I'll catch you later on.
And thank you very much.
Wait, the guys get my car flying off. my Honda's clapped out as well.
Thank you very much for listening at home as well. Cheers.